Welcome to At Home with George. My name is George Mumford, and the idea of offering these videos is to embrace the opportunity, the possibility of saying yes to both the hurt and the hope, viewing experience from a home base, if you will. So the question is, what is home? I know one thing, it's an inside job. It's only found within. And you might say the home is where the heart is, but you also can say that the idea is to train the heart so that we can say yes to both the hurt and the hope. And I'm reminded of a samurai poem that I read that talks about the samurai saying, "I make awareness my home." So this idea of being aware, this idea of how can we be in a way where we're able to hold both or to say yes to the hurt, because it's definitely a challenging time, and at the same time being hopeful. And how can we use this time in a way where it empowers us to connect and express our spirituality, to connect and experience our humanness. And so the idea is to just to have a conversation, just to explore what does that mean. And so for me, it is very important that we understand that we have this body, we have this mind, and that we have this ability to step back and observe experience in a way where we can do it uncritically or mindfully, which means just like holding up a mirror, it just reflects what's there. And the idea is how can we bring enthusiasm and excitement to the fact that even though there's danger, there's an opportunity for us to really express our latent abilities. And I come from this place of believing that we all have a masterpiece, a divine spark, or we're wired for success. And in these challenging times is when our latent abilities come to the fore or express themselves. And so that is the reason why I offer these videos, is just to talk about it and to remind us of who we are and what's possible for us as human beings, especially when we can be at home and the sense of it being within, and that we're able to observe experience in a way where we say yes to the hurt and the hope, and we're just showing up for life in a way where we feel empowered and we can tolerate and we can experience the hurt as well as keep the hope alive. It's important for us to acknowledge the hurt, because when we're hurt, we don't acknowledge it, then we end up through speech or thought or activity where we're coming out of the hurt and we're causing suffering for ourselves or others. And we have this feeling of something is wrong, but not quite knowing what it is. We feel unsettled, we feel anxious, or we feel the opposite of being at ease, and unease. And so the idea is to be able to acknowledge, yes, this is painful, and I don't like the fact that I'm home, but at the same time, I can choose whether I make that a problem or make it something else in terms of how do I relate to it in a way with hope, so that I keep hope alive and I continue to move from the present into the future in a way that I'm able to see the benefits as well as some of the losses, some of the I would say just comforting things that are presenting us. For instance, being in the house for weeks at a time and having that feeling of being having cabin fever, or just the fact that I like to go to movies. I can't go to movies right now. I might like to go to the beach and hang out on the beach. Can't do that right now in terms of sitting down. I like to go out and eat with friends. Can't do that right now. But at the same time, there's friends and family members that are sick or in danger. I have a number of nurses in my family, nieces and great nieces. And so they're on the front line. I know firefighters. I know police officers. I know teachers. I know administrators, people that work in government. So people are dying. People are getting sick. And this is no joke. So we have to acknowledge that, because if we don't acknowledge the hurt, then we won't make wise decisions. As far as the hope is concerned, we have to keep hope alive, because hope, and when we generate hope, that keeps us keeping on. That helps us train our mind, our hearts, to be present for life, and at the same time to continue to live and continue to let that latent ability or that divine spark, that masterpiece within, to express itself. So what makes me hopeful is my experience from past calamities or difficulties. We go back to 9/11, when you've seen firefighters and other people running into the building to save others, where you get beyond this illusion of separateness and you're thinking about the other person, even though you're putting yourself in jeopardy. I remember during the fires in Northern California, there was one young man that kept going in rescuing people, and he ended up perishing in the fire. I can remember the Boston Marathon bombing. When the bombs went off, people were running towards the explosion, not away from the explosion. So there is this part of us that every once in a while, these calamities or these difficult times gets us beyond that illusion of separateness, and we realize I and the other are one. And so I like to call it, we find ourselves when we forget ourselves, when we think about other, we think about how we can serve, we think about how we might alleviate the suffering. I have a friend of mine who made over 2,000 masks for people, or just cloth masks for people to wear out in public. She's not getting paid for that. She donates them. And I remember a young schoolgirl did the same thing. So there are a lot of people who are volunteering, going to the soup, whether it's soup or providing meals for people that don't have money to buy food. So you can see it all over the place if we look at it. And you can see Sean Penn is doing an amazing job raising money for testing to be available for people at free cost. And there's many other people. I apologize if I don't mention all of them, but there's a lot of goodwill out there. So how do we connect with our divine spark? It's through our suffering and our compassion, feeling at one with others. Like, just like me, that person wants to be happy, but they're suffering. They're experiencing loss. It could be a loved one. It could be a way of being. It could be a routine, but it's still painful. And so it's helpful for us to be with what is. Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So yes, it's very challenging. It's really devastating. And at the same time, we have to live, and we have to keep moving and keep our heads up and continue to help each other through this challenging time. How can we develop a greater capacity for compassion? For myself, it's my own suffering. When I suffer, the things I've gone through, when I can imagine what it feels like when you lose a loved one, or what does it feel like when you lose your job? What does it feel like when there's a lot of uncertainty and you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, or you don't know if you're going to be able to work or even walk in some cases if you have some kind of injury or if you get in some type of accident. And it's by me remembering what it felt like to be sad, to be frustrated, to be depressed, that helps me to identify with other people's suffering, because I know what that feels like. I know how uncomfortable it is. I know how painful it is. And the fact is that through our suffering, we can have compassion and think thoughts like, just like me, that person wants to be happy, but they're experiencing suffering. They're experiencing loss. They're experiencing devastation. And so just to be with them, not that I have to be in this suffering in the sense of going through exactly what they're going through, but just realizing, just like me, this person wants to be happy and they're experiencing a lot of discomfort or suffering right now. And so I wish them well. I wish that they are able to find peace in the middle of that suffering. So for me, these practices of prayer and meditation, or just being present and embracing both the hurt and the hope, saying yes to the hope and the hurt, that we're able to find a place of rest, a place of being. And it's interesting, back in the early 1990s, I had the opportunity to go to Hong Kong to visit a friend. And I recognized that even though I was in a foreign country, I felt at home. And of course, I was in a country that it was very common to go outside and see people doing Tai Chi. I was very into Tai Chi back in those days and the internal martial arts. And there were a lot of temples where people, you didn't necessarily see people meditating, but you seen them offering alms around. And so being in a place where I realized at that point that because I had made peace with myself, I had trained my heart, that wherever I go, there I am, and home is where the heart is. So if my heart is in Hong Kong, if I'm fully open, then I'm feeling at home. I'm not feeling like I'm in a foreign country because I'm connected with myself and connected with other human beings, understanding just like me, this person is going to have some hurt in their life. They're going to, and hopefully they have some hope. But we don't escape being human. So being human means we're going to suffer. We're going to have pain. We're going to have discomfort. We're going to have people die. We're going to lose things. We're going to lose our routines. We're going to lose our vitality. We're going to lose things and people we love. It's just what's going to happen. And so for me, that's what helps is understanding if I train my heart, if I train myself to be open and say yes to the hurt, say yes to the hope, that I'll be present wherever I am, and home, the home will be a base for me to be able to experience, observe my experience, view my experience in a way where I stay balanced in spite of how much hurt or hope there is.